you hear me? Hello, Bocas people. Welcome to this session. If you're just getting in, please take your seat. We hope you've been having an excellent time with us here at the 2026 Bocas Lit Fest. If you have been, can we get a smidge of applause? Thank you for being here with us all together now. This year's festival motto, it couldn't be more apropos in general and in particular for this session, which we are proud and honored to co-present with the Brooklyn Caribbean Literary Festival. Give them a round of applause. So, as a festival programmer, you're not really supposed to have favorite writers. But that being said, I have been super excited about this panel since its inception. Like many of us, I've been reading and admiring and immersing myself in the work of Cheryl Boyce-Taylor for a very long time. I mean, before I had a published book, Cheryl was one of the most unstintingly generous poets and arts workers that I've known. We've only known each other from across the seas. It was a privilege and an honor to meet her in person at this year's festival. I'm sure many of you here in this room feel the same way about Cheryl. For her and for us, it is a homecoming. We are so proud to share in with BCLF. I think that deserves, and Cheryl deserves, a round of applause. I'm going to share Cheryl's very impressive bio with you because it deserves to be. And keep in mind, as I read it, this is just a fraction of what she's done in her impressive life in poetry. Cheryl Boyce-Taylor is a poet and teaching artist. She earned an MFA from Stone Coast at the University of Southern Maine and an MSW from Fordham University. Her collections of poetry include Raw Air, 2000, Night When Moon Follows, also 2000, Convincing the Body, 2005, and Arrival, 2017, which was a finalist for the Patterson Poetry Prize. Mama Fife Represents, 2021, was awarded the 2022 Audre Lorde Award for Lesbian Poetry by the Publishing Triangle. The founder and curator of Calypso Muse and the Glitter Pomegranate Performance Series, Boyce-Taylor is also a poetry judge for the New York Foundation for the Arts and the Astrea Lesbian Foundation for Justice. She has led workshops for Cave Canem, poets and writers, and the Caribbean Literary and Cultural Center. Cheryl's poetry has been commissioned by the Joyce Theatre and the National Endowment for the Arts for Ronald K. Brown's Evidence, a dance company. Boyce-Taylor is a recipient of the 2015 Barnes & Noble's Writers for Writers Award and a Vona Fellow. Her life papers and portfolio are stored at the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture in New York City. I think that deserves a round of applause. In conversation with Cheryl today is one of the most indefatigable arts workers I know, Marsha Massiah. Marsha is the founder and executive director of the Brooklyn Caribbean Literary Festival. Marsha, you don't get tired? Please enjoy this session.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. I am so excited to be here until I'm nervous. I have wanted to read in Trinidad since I left at the age 13 and realized that I was a poet. So thank you for coming. Thank you, Marsha. Thank you, Shivani. And I have family here from Arima, which is where I'm from. So I'm really excited. So let me start before I run off the stage. Okay, so This first poem that I'm reading is called Yearning. And one of the questions I was asked was, what was the first poem I wrote? I wrote a few, but I'm selecting this one because it became what's known as my signature poem around New York City. And I won an award, a small award with a small honorarium. That was the first time. I was shocked. Because in those days, you didn't get money for reading. We just had fun. Okay, so Yearning. A long white space with blue dots and orange lines. A wide winter space for hummingbird sounds and steel pan pounds. A space turned out with yearning. I say I have a yearning. I say I have a yearning for night tepid breeze, big fat moon that ain't afraid you, big moon shining like my neighbor mole face. Oh God, a yearning. A yearning for mango doodoo, sticky and sweet, for melanjan, curry cabbage and blue dasheen. A yearning to see the green jaundiced eyes of a ratty mangy dog smiling after he eat up the saltfish bone the man throw for he. A yearning for girl, come out the canal. I go tell your mother you're cursing. A yearning for woman when me kiss me ass food. Wee, Papa, it's sounding like you're vexed. Ease me up now. You can't see a nurse in the baby. You better use the stove, we brother. But what wrong with this woman? She think I's a hen? A yearning for my old goat Sheila and the textile gate up Victory Street where I let she drop she shit balls in the white people yard one at a time. A yearning for standpipe water and bellyful breadfruit, chenet to make my tongue tight and morby so I could pee better. A yearning for she get me hot and a cuss she tail. I call she mother all kinds of names. My mouth and hand no cover. Me afraid nobody know. A yearning to kiss up Frederick Street. And mass, oh mass. A yearning for rum shop and Christmas parang. And obia to get the man I want. A little blue bag to swell the foot. A child mother belly. A yearning for roti and roast corn by Curab Junction, and a nice cold carrot to send it down. A yearning for voices ringing shrill, Bamsi rolling, one hand on left hip, the other flying, leaping in my face. Oh gosh, a yearning. Yearning, 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 hungry for my people. For my people. Thank you. I just also wanted to say before I go too much further, that poetry, I know a lot of people think that it is your personal experience, and some of it is, but this poem were things that I heard from different people in the neighborhood and other places as I grew up. So I wanted to put them in one place. All of the slangs, the gossip, the old wives' tales. So that is what it is for. When we as poets write, it's not always our experience. It's just like fiction. You mix that in with truth, and you just let people have a good time. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. So Cheryl, you actually just took the first question away from me with that opening. No, there was a gorgeous introduction into where we're going. And first of all, y'all, we are with an intern, I would call it a big tune. Cheryl is a very big tune, and I do not like the way that y'all applauded her at first. We are in the presence of poetry royalty. Can we please? We are here to give Cheryl her flowers. Our homecoming is noisy, it's rowdy, it comes from our bellies. And Cheryl, like, that's what so much of your poetry invokes. across your 5 collections, there's a sonic geography of Trinidad that clearly never left you, right? We meet fragments of poetry. There's dirt, there's shells, time, verbena. It's redolent with the memory of Trinidad. And each time I encounter your poem, I wonder if that's been a conscious aesthetic in your poetry. Like, did you do that deliberately? Or is it parts of this place, this phenomenal island, nation, that has never left you?
Oh my God. No, it's never left me. I came to New York when I was 13. My mother sent me to stay with her sister. We were all planning to travel together, and then it didn't work out. And she said that, okay, so I'll be there in probably a couple of months. And it was way longer than that. And I just felt so lost. Although my family was beautiful, I didn't really know them. They would visit once in a while. I didn't know them fully. So the thing that my mother was a woman who read and memorized long poems, European poems. That's what they were reading in her school years. And so she would memorize poems and just read it all over the house, or just perform it all over the house. And so that was the first thing that stuck with me. I wanted to remain close to my family, to my home, and the things that kept me were all of, what the rain felt like, what the windows, what the birds felt like. And so I have held on to those things, and it is the one thing that has kept me going all these years. I feel over and over poetry has saved my life. And if I didn't have all the things like the river and what it sounded like rolling by, what my grandmother sounded like as she chased us in our room, if I didn't hold on to those things, I don't know if I could really make it. Yeah.
So in a lot of ways, your culture was this real umbilical connection.
Oh, yes.
And survival for you.
Yes, survival. And some of the things that I took for granted, like, the cooking with my family on Sundays, going to the river, I took all of those things for granted. But even the music and the steel pan, it was there, so you didn't. But when I came here and looked at the television and saw there was no representation of me, I held on to what was mine.
Gosh, and we are the recipients of your generosity.
And I'm the recipient too.
So your mom, the mic? Oh yeah, okay. Do you remember the first poem you memorized? So your mom was reading you all these poems, and they were European poems, and you are here writing poems in our Creole. What was the first poem you memorized? Do you remember?
It was a poem about leaving Trinidad. And my uncle the day that I left Trinidad, my mother had gotten sick at church. They never found out what was wrong, but we figured she was brokenhearted to let her little daughter go, because it was just my brother and I was her baby. And so she ended up in the hospital. And so my uncle Alvin, his sons are here, my Uncle Alvin took me to the hospital early before I went to the airport. And when we were coming back home, he said, okay, I want you to be a good girl when you go away. I want you to listen to Aunt Ina. He said, and Cheryl, you're not pretty, but you're smarter than plenty of them wrong here. So I want you to use your voice and use your brain. Who says that? You're not pretty. So I wrote a poem about that. I was just like, oh gosh, he's too much. But he meant well. He was very loving in saying it, but those were the older days, we're talking 1964, I left for Trinidad, for US. So my uncle was just funny anyway.
So you left at 13. Your mom gave you the map. Your map forward was poetry, right?
Yes.
She had been reading this poetry to you since.
And my teacher too.
And
because by the time I was 1950s. So when we were in early school, our teachers, I remember this one teacher, Irene Charles, I love her forever. She would take us out under the tree and we would have to recite a poem that she had given us before. Each person had a different one. And so it stuck in my heart in a whole lot of ways. So this was one way to keep abreast, to keep my mother's dream alive, because she loved poetry. And I fell in love with it too.
So we actually have you on cue to do finally, Elma. Yeah?
Yes.
Do you want to do finally, Elma, for
You know
us?
what, I changed it a little.
You changed it? Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Okay,
I
yes.
will hold it here. Like this.
So this is called Poodles and Sour Cream. As you know, many women, when they left Trinidad or where they came from, they went to the U.S. and there was a family sponsoring them. And so my mother had a family sponsoring her also. But it meant that she had to do sleep-in work and take care of these two little girls. And so even though she was in New York, I didn't see her until the weekend for like 2 days. So this is one of the poems that I wrote early. Poodles and Sour Cream. I am the third generation of daughters whose mother worked as a domestic in that great neck house of poodles and sour cream. In that house, girls younger than me called my mother by a nickname. Jeannie, what's for breakfast? Jeannie, wash my hair. Jeannie, take out my bike. Jeannie, get my boots off. My mother, who raised me to call all elders Tanti, uncle, granny, related or not. Tanti Evelyn, Tanti Vida, Uncle Dadui, Uncle Horatio. Even the bum with the limp was called Mr. Bruckupfoot. In that cold New York house, my mother spent 3 years eating mashed potatoes and sour cream, doing sleep-in work, waiting for she green card to come, and every night crying for she beloved daughter, so she could care for white people children and not her own daughter. There's another short one that my mother taught me, all these words. It's called I Name Gal Tree. My home name is Gal. I remember who I am, braided gal, drinking cocoa tea, eating fry bake. I make sardines in onion stew just like mommy teach me. I remember who I am. I remember to say paliwal, not best friend. Remember to say bodhi, not string beans. Remember to say melanjan, not eggplant. Zabuka, not no avocado. I remember to say she bold face, fast and out of place. But then I remember I more bold than she. Everybody say, so long you're in America and you still have accent? And I say, I am the daughter of Elma and Roy, and I name Gal.
There is present in all of your poems this deep reverence for your parents. And I remember that you famously stated in this interview that your father allowed you to express yourself like no matter what was on your mind. And I'm presuming that for that age, he was going against the grain because girls were meant to be seen and not heard, right?
Yes, yes.
So in many ways, your father was an early feminist.
Yes, so much so because, you know, my parents were lived separately. And so I would be at my father's on the weekend or sometimes during the week. So he didn't have no time to be spanking me and buffing me. He was so happy that I was there. So, so when I would say things, he would like, little girl, get in the car. Let's go. You know, he never would say, don't you dare say that. You know, all that. And the one thing about those years, the 50s, the rearing was so punitive. My father was not like that. But my mother, she was the boss. She had to work and do everything. So I know, I listened to her, but I didn't listen to him.
How do you think that free expression that you were given influenced your childhood? You as a child and then later your artistry as a poet.
I didn't hear the last.
How do you think that that access to free expression influenced your artistry as a poet?
Because I knew that I could say anything I wanted to say. I love poems, and I didn't know one day I would write them, but all I know, I loved them. And my father would encourage me to read, and we had the English poets, and he would encourage me to read those, as did my mother. So they planted it in me. I really feel that.
So at 13 years old, you left. So we're just kind of like mapping you chronologically through Cheryl's journey. You get to New York City. What was that early educational experience for you like?
Well, when I got there, I was supposed to go to the 8th grade, and about 2-3 weeks into the 8th grade, they said, no, you're for the 9th grade. But in the meantime, the children were laughing at my accent, which kind of made me feel I'm not going to speak and I'm not going to say too much. I mean, even the teacher was laughing. Can you imagine that? So that was pretty hurtful. But we had a spelling test, I think it was, spelling. And honey, I got 100 on that test. And after that day, I get friends. So, because my mother was a nursery school teacher. So, and my mother used to train young people to take the common entrance exam. So you're her children, you better be passing it. She has nothing to do with what's out there, but she wants what represents her, and she was correct, totally. The one thing I knew more than anything else, I must say, is that whatever my mother recommended for my education, I knew she was right, and I did everything she said I should in terms of school. That's the one thing. Yeah.
And Cheryl, that also kind of speaks to what we experience, which is that you migrate, you come from Trinidad, you enter into the educational system there, and we tend to have this a leg up on everybody else in the system. It's rigorous in the Caribbean, and we get there and we perform so well.
Yes.
And so fast forwarding now to the age of 19, you become a mother to Malik Isaac. And for y'all that don't know, Cheryl's son was the famous Fife Dog, who was a founding member of a tribe called Quest. And one of my favorite lines from his song, and there's a song that he wrote called Baby Fife's Return, and that line goes, my mama, no doubt, that's where I get my lyricism. My nana, that's where I got my spiritualism. And so from a tender age, Malik was displaying this immense artistic talent. And clearly you and your mom, who had migrated by that time, were very influential forces in his life.
Yes.
How did you decide, Cheryl, what you were going to discard in terms of how you were raising him, being this immigrant woman in America, raising a first-generation American for the first time? Mm-hmm. How did you make a trade-off in terms of how you decided to raise him, the values you were going to instill in him that certainly would not quench the talent that you were seeing in your son?
Yeah, well, let me just say that his dad is also Trinidadian. And so he was raised similar to me, with the rough, go and sit down. I mean, I remember coming from school and hearing children getting licks in the house, but it was for homework. They didn't do their homework. They didn't do well on a test.
Sounding like my house, Cheryl. Huh? Sounding like my house. You get the licks.
I mean, we would hear all that. So he was from the same background too, and then once we were here, we both felt that African American men, it seemed to us, didn't have an opportunity to just speak and say what they wanted to. The racist system doesn't always allow that. And so we decided that we were not going to stop Malik from speaking up and saying what he needed. And now he couldn't be rude to anybody, but he could share what he wanted. And I rather prefer a little spicy child rather than a child who's like, because they're not going to get very far with that. So we encouraged him to speak up and tell us what he needed and what he wanted. And when he was 9 years old, he was already writing rhymes and looking for crew. So, but we didn't know what that meant, but his father said that would keep him off the street, because he had his best friend Q-Tip and another neighbor's boy, and they were writing rhymes. He'd read it to me sometimes, but I was in school, working, so there was a lot going on. But we encouraged him because we wanted a child who could ask for what he needed.
So tell
God and things like that. I would say, I want you to prepare a poem so that you can open the reading. So he would say, yeah, and he would write something. But this one time when I knew he was talented, I was doing a big thing in somebody's yard, and we had other performers. And somebody I wanted to impress because I needed some funding. So I told him, I want you to write a poem. All week I told him, memorize it so you'll be good. He said, okay. We got there that day, and it was his turn to get up. I'm noticing he doesn't have paper or anything. Girl, he gets up there and does this poem. So I was like, after he was finished, it was good. People were applauding. I said, Malik, what, you memorized that? You learned it? He said, no, Ma, that's called freestyle. I knew nothing about it. He was like, that's freestyle. I said, okay, do freestyle. So that's the kind of parents we were, because we really wanted him to meet his dreams. We wanted school and education for him, but he had his own plans. Thank God we let him.
What was your mom in this entire period of Malik's life and your life? What role did she play in supporting you and him?
Well, I'll have to say that my mom was the second parent, but really I would say she was the first parent, because I was 19, my husband was 21, and there was Malik, the apple of her eye. So at times she was parenting us all. But she made Malik's dad and I promise that if we stayed in school, in college, she would help with all the babysitting, school, anything. But if we stopped, she promised us that's going to be the last day I babysit. She was serious. So, she changed after the baby, too. She wasn't as harsh as many parents know. When you become a grandparent, you are completely different. And so that was my mother. She was a little more lenient, But when he began performing, she was Seventh-day Adventist. So she did not want him traveling and going on stage and performing. And there were times I would tell her, no, he's going. He's my child, not yours. I mean, I know you think that, but... So we really had to stand up for him. She didn't want him to be on stage because, it's against God and the church.
But his exposure to that spiritualism has really influenced Malik's music. Like, they did not sing smut. They were very positive. That's what Tribe Called Quest represents.
Yes, that is what they represent. Because Malik and Q-Tip, they were Seventh-day Adventists, and Ali Shaheed Muhammad was Muslim. So it was their religious and spiritual background that helped them to stay out of trouble, stay out of drugs, stay out of running women. They really are nice guys, and I'm not saying that because, it's my son or whatever. They were wonderful young men, and their friends would tell you,
And they were very young when they experienced this stratospheric rise to fame. Malik was, 17 when he left for Europe?
17 when he left home to go to Europe.
What was that like for you?
I knew that he was talented, but also my husband and I had divorced, and he was so sad. But when he started really pushing forward the writing, he was happier than I'd seen him. And I said, I am not going to take that away from him. He said, I'm going to Europe because you'll smother me. I was like, oh my God, okay, all right. I was shocked, I was like, I could never say that to my mother, but, that's how he was. I wouldn't say he was rude. I would say that he speaks up and he defends whatever it is he wants. He's able to defend it, so.
And in a lot of ways, you gave him that, though. You gave him permission to do that.
And my father gave me the permission to do that. So
the continuation of this lineage.
Yeah.
So they are leaving for Europe, and they're writing these songs. They become uber popular. They come to represent, I think, one of the best acts that have come out of the birth of hip-hop, right?
Yes.
But if you listen to a lot of Malik's lyrics, especially when Five Dog comes on and he's saying, I like them brown, yellow, Puerto Rican, and Haitian, he's referring to Linden Boulevard. There's Trinidad Creole in his songs, right?
Creole, yeah.
He even has a song that he writes in dialect. Clearly, that's coming out of him as a part of his creative consciousness. What was happening in your home? What was happening in your home that Malik was hearing these things, and then in a way, Trinidad's culture influenced revolutionary hip-hop music in New York?
Well, for one thing, he would come to Trinidad quite often during the summer when he was young. So he would be with his cousins, Mr. Kester over there, and they would run around and play, soccer and everything else. But he loved the dialect, so he was always practicing. And his father, I have to give him this, he loved music. And when Malik was a baby, we had one of those old-fashioned recording things. You put up the lid and you put your music on there. And he would lay Malik on this side and play the turntable on that side. So, and he listened to all kinds of music, world music, reggae, everything. So that was in him very, very early. Yeah.
The Tribe Called Quest won Grammys, right? So you've been on Grammy stages, several Grammys.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And then last year they were nominated for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Amazing,
Which was
Cheryl.
just amazing. Because you have to be in the business for 25 years to qualify for it. So.
And it sounds like it's roses and it sounds like it's easy, but Malik has some health challenges along the way, right?
Very serious health challenges. He was also, like me, a type 1 diabetic. And I think that, his touring and all of that really was harder on his health. Because sometimes they would be in some foreign country, they did their performance. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, they're just getting off stage, there's no way to get anything to eat, but like maybe junk food or whatever. So I would say that was really very hard on his health also. But he was also determined never to leave the road, nobody could take him off. And so, I tried to work with him in a lot of ways, but he had moved to California, and I was in New York, and it became harder. But listen, he would be in the hospital bed doing interviews, in the hospital bed making a beat with Jay Dilla. This is how he was. So nothing could stop him. But he went through a lot of hard times. He had a kidney transplant, which he was very open about. His health as a diabetic. He shared it. He shared some of what was going on. And his wife, little tiny woman, was the one whose kidney matched. So, yes, so she gave him a kidney. And, a kidney sometimes, they're not sure how long it will last in different bodies. And so it's lasted for a number of years, but then it failed and he had to go back on dialysis. And so he's been through a lot, thus the family has been through a lot.
And on March 22nd, in 2016, Malik passes away.
Yeah.
How did you deal, Cheryl, with that crippling grief that engulfed you? And how did poetry play any part in helping you through that?
Yeah. She's asking me a hard question. Yes, in March 22nd of 2016, my son passed away. He was in California. I had seen him 2 weeks before that, and we knew he was sick, but he was also performing, traveling. He had just come from Europe. He was making Tribe's last album. He was on the road. He came to New York, and that's how come I spent some time with him. He was making his solo album. He was fine, you know, he seemed fine. And then he went home 2 weeks later. He passed away in his house. It was completely devastating, my one only premature little boy. So it was devastating, but I had a lot of family around me, my girlfriend Sini, lots of friends, because in the poetry community, I have developed a very strong community, so I was really supported. But I went to therapy, and I really want to stress that. I don't know how people feel about therapy, but I know that it helps. Because first of all, I was a therapist myself because I started as a social worker and moved into therapy, so I really believed in the craft. You have to find the right therapist as much as you find the right personal doctor for your heart or your whatever other part. And I went to therapy for 3.5 years, and I'm glad I did because I don't know where I would be if I had not. And I wrote. I started writing. The book called Mama Fife Represents is, it's a verse memoir. That's this book. That is this book I wrote. And this is the book that really saved my life. And it speaks about Malik's work, about our work as artists, mother and son, and I just shared from his childhood on up. It was very hard to get through that time. And to be honest, there are days that I cry every day. I do what I have to do. I write about it. I don't think that type of pain ever leaves you. But I found a new word, a combination word called joy, sadness, joy. That's a new word I spooled together because that is the story of my life. I struggled, but it was sweet, bittersweet, because my son was a gem, a sweet guy. So I hold on to that. Where there's sadness, there's so much other joy. You know, all around the world, people came out to say how they felt about him. I wonder what it's like for a parent who loses their child and then on the internet they're saying all these negative and hurtful and painful things. I wonder what that would be like. I'm so grateful that I did not have to go through that. That is hell. Yeah.
Mama Fife Represents is really a beautiful tribute to that love that Cheryl and her son shared. I mean, you should get it at the back of the book. There are photos.
Oh, yes, at the back of the book, family photos.
Some of Malik's scribbles, right?
Yes,
like
some of
all
Malik's
of those are
writing.
reproduced in the book. And in those early days of your grief, you turned to writing poetry, but were there any Caribbean writers to whose poetry you turned? And
Yes.
are there any poems that you return to even now in joy, sadness, joy?
Oh, yeah.
Right? That non-linear
Yes.
healing journey of yours. Is there anything that you
Yes,
turn
one
to
of the
now?
one of the poets, and this is not because her work deals with sadness or anything, but Dionne Brand. She's a Trinidadian poet. And then there was Derek Walcott. I love Derek's work. I studied with him. Some of my friends, Roger Benet Egad, right there. We were writing together in New York City, killing them with dialect. So, you know, just that, having those friends that wrote in dialect. Audre Lorde, whom I studied with, a big feminist and writer and lover of words. And so many people like that. You know, there's June Jordan, whose family is Jamaican. She's Jamaican-American. So I really held on to the works of those women and men.
we were just signaled for near time, so I think do we have opportunity for one more poem? Yeah, one more poem. And then we'll turn to some questions and answers. So Cheryl, you get to choose from all of the luminous poems that we lined up. Y'all, we had like 5 more poems for y'all.
Okay. This poem is called The House in Liberty, and it's for Sini. We build a fire, circle ourselves in conversation, your hand light on my back. I love the catch and loosening of your snore. A wild sea makes a path into our world of dreams. I love your hands' cracked shells, the way you flick that cigarette, talk without removing it from between your lips. I love the stubborn gray hairs beating at your temples, and the worn voice that inquires about our love. I want to tell you, I sleep too many nights alone to be considered partnered. I want to tell you, I fear getting old without you, fear empty hands reaching for me. An old wound unfolding, a blue heart grief. Rising, rising, I want to always praise the sky in us, our shoulder blades like damp hollow creeks, hands flat fans folded in prayer, tears raining, moon sweet nectar to gobble.
Excerpt from Mama Fife represents the When Her Child Dies too.
Oh,
And then you'll see that interacting with Cheryl's poems means that you come into contact with all kinds of love.
When her child dies. I had written When Her Child Dies 1, which was the shock, and this was as I grew to accept it and accept and receive support. Oh, I'm sorry. I said that When Her Child Dies 1 was the poem that I wrote when I first had the shock of my son's passing. And When Her Child Dies 2 is the poem that I wrote as I began to accept it, as I began to accept kindness from friends. When her child dies too. When her child dies, a mother does not know that she will be grateful for anything. She will be grateful that she raised him in church. Grateful that he was not killed in the back of a police cruiser, on the BART, the London Underground, New York City subway. Grateful he was not killed by knife, gun, machete, redneck, punk, tree trunk. When her child dies, she will be grateful he did not end up on life support in hospice care or Rikers Island prison. She does not know a street will be named for him in his birth town of Queens, that murals will be painted in Paris, Australia, South Africa, Chicago. She will wear his pajamas to bed, cuddle the Mickey Mouse doll he bought at a London airport. And when she finds a gold chain on the sand in South Beach, she will know he left it for her because she loves glitter. She will listen to his music over and over. She will tremble at his sass. She will know she is lucky to still have his songs. She will gather white candles and sage, She will sprinkle white rum and build him an altar. Her tears will flow into the Nile. She will give him back to Shango, to Oya. She will love herself, Ibeji daughter, Ibeji mother, more than she ever did before.
So now we can open up to hear some from you. If you have any questions, anyone? Yeah, sure.
You're welcome.
I'm really feeling the pain and the joy in the yearning and in the grief for the loss of your son. When you went to therapy, and you said everybody should go, you couldn't have done it without the therapy. What exactly in the therapy helped you? Is it the words that she said? And were you writing during the therapy?
Yes, I actually wrote 3 books in 3 years during that period. So, but the therapist, well, it depends on the therapist, and people should go only if they want to try something else. The therapist doesn't really tell you what to feel. They ask you, like you may say something like, my mother never gave me hugs and kisses. So how does that feel to you? Think about it. What do you think that was about? They're not putting words on you. They're getting you to think about these things and these feelings and how you might want to resolve that. What do you think you could do? Do you think you could get a journal and write down these feelings when they come? What do you think you should do? So they don't really push you into any particular box. And if the therapist doesn't work for you, get another one. You don't have to stay with a bad therapist, not ever.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Is there anyone else? Yeah, to the front, thanks.
It's been 10 years that me and a couple of friends have been wanting to say sorry because that last trip to Europe, to London, was with us for a concert that we put on in London without knowing what was going to happen after, but feeling very guilty after.
Feeling very?
Guilty. Because in some way we thought that we were kind of responsible, knowing his situation with the diabetes and his kidneys, and so sorry.
Oh, I would say, oh no, there's no sorry. He at one time, he was receiving they were telling him he had to have dialysis. And there are 2 types. There's a dialysis which is called peritoneal dialysis that you can do at home, but you have to do exchanges 4 times a day. There's the other one where you go to the hospital and the clinic 2 or 3 times a week and you stay there to get your blood cleansed. And he was like, I'm not doing that. I'm going to be dialyzing 4 times a day because I'm on the road. Nothing could stop him. And I mean, he performed that. Sometimes we would be at the show, we would wonder, he just dialyzed. How does he have this energy? But I think when you have something that you love and want, that comes first. So no reason to be sad or sorry. Yeah.
Is there anyone else?
I want to follow that story with a thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
You've given such an incredible gift to this world through your work and through your son's work. I just really want to thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I also want to say that, Cheryl, one of the things that your work exudes is grace and kindness and forgiveness.
Thank you.
And I often wonder how you are able to ride through the incredible despair that you have felt at times. Where does that love come from? Where does this boundless source of hope for what your tomorrow looks like comes from?
Yeah.
I often wonder, because you are an activist, you're a writer, you're a mother to many. You show up in the Calypso Muse series. You're
Yes.
constantly organizing for other artists and writers, and you're very prolific in your kindness. Like, where does that come from, Cheryl?
Well, it comes from being born and grow up in Trinidad, for one thing. Because, I grew up in a neighborhood where your clothes would be on the line. If it starts to rain, your neighbor run out and pick it up for you. So, I grew up with, morning, how you doing today? How's your grandmother? I know she wasn't feeling well last week. That is what I grew up with. So that is still in me. The love and kindness, and my mother, and my father too, My father was what you call a saltfish. Everywhere he went, they, right, where you going, come and you come back. So that's what I'm used to. And I pride myself on having a good heart. I think it's important, and I'm happy with the poetry, reading, writing. I love to see young writers come. There's enough room on the stage for all of us to be here. But there are some people, they don't feel like that, and they feel, you would threaten what they might get, and I've never felt that way. Yeah. And I feel like I'm a joyous person. I laugh a lot. I mean, my diabetes is really difficult and kicking my butt, but that would just be as it is, because I have no control over that.
And that's also something that Fife was very vocal about, right? He called himself the funky diabetic in a lot of his songs. Mm-hmm. But you have a full plate. You tour extensively. You're always teaching. You're going somewhere. How do you manage that with your type 1 diabetes? Like, how do you do both things?
Yeah, it's pretty hard. Like being here, there's a lot of sweets and foods, which I knew before I came. And so, now when I'm here, I do the salads, I do the vegetables, I stay away from sweet things, I'll have water or seltzer because I can't have the soda or the orange, but, I don't feel deprived. There are times I never was angry that I had diabetes until now, but it really comes in because of the aging. That's what I'm most angry about. What are you old lady coming here for? What are you coming by here for? Nobody here wants you. So that's generally what I'm upset about. But I think years ago I accepted that I was a type 1 diabetic.
The type 1 is the one that is...
Type 1 is the one that's hereditary, and you get it through relatives, and your pancreas doesn't make any insulin. Type 2 has been known to be, they used to call it adult onset, where, as you get older, sometimes the pancreas is not able to manage the sugar well and put it throughout your body. But now they've noticed that they find it in very young kids as well. It's a kind of sedentary lifestyle. This is what they say, but I know people, that's not true. They go and go. They just have it, like everything else we have on this planet.
Are there any upcoming projects that you're working on that you'd like to tell us about? What are you working on right now?
Yes, I'm working on book 8 right now, and it's erotica. So
it's big people thing.
So yes, that's what I'm working on. And I'm also working on a live presentation of Malik's work. Mm-hmm. from the Mama Five Represents.
Is that going to be on stage?
On stage,
On
yeah,
stage?
yeah.
Okay. So all of y'all, please go out, look for Cheryl's book. Go on YouTube, look for her son's work, like, subscribe, follow Cheryl on all of her Instagram channels. Oh, we have one question. Someone, yes? Did you have a question? Can we take the... Yeah.
Hey, that's my cousin Ray.
Ray, what's up, Ray?
We grew up together. What you say? I couldn't hear you.
We always used to hear about your work, but I think we appreciate it more now.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you to the Bocas team for co-presenting Cheryl's Homecoming, the long-awaited homecoming.
Yes, thank you so
Thank you
much.
to Ray and the family for expressing your gratitude to Cheryl. Sometimes all we really need to hear from our loved ones is you did well. It's very easy to get it from other people, but when your family tells you it, it takes on something else. So thank you, Ray, for speaking on behalf of the family.
Yes, thank you so much. I lived for this day, and I have to say, I want to dedicate this reading to one of my dearest friends. She passed away now, but her name was R.H. Douglas, Rodin Douglas, and she's a Trinidadian poet, and we often spoke about coming here to read, so Rodin, this is for you.
So there, yeah, we're going to wrap up now. There are books for Cheryl. Are you going to do the outros, Shivani? Thank you.
Cheryl's work here for sale. Paperbase has stayed open with copies of many of Cheryl's books. Take home as many as you can. You're going to love them for the rest of your life. And after you've done that and get your book signed by Cheryl, please stay with us for the Old Mass competition and extempo debate. Thank you for being with us.